Everything about his face was perfect except for everything. His hair was combed in the way that only a gallon of gel and grease could manage, swirling this way and that, practically plastered to his head, not a tuft, not a strand, not a molecule out of place. In his hands was perched a velvety blue black top hat, but the man knew he had no intention of slipping it on and risking the hour's worth of work he'd put into his hairdo that morning. It was a rather useless top hat, he figured, but all the other men at the office brought one with them and never wore it, and therefore so did he. Down below the perfect hair were the perfect eyes, just the right shade of brown, not too dark to be intimidating, and yet not light enough to seem vulnerable or weak. Not blue like the tears he brushed away when the other men in their useless top hats were looking away. Not green like the color his garden turned in the spring before the heat of the summer reduced it to ashes. Not gray like his insides after the tears came. Not gray like the emptiness he sank into each day when he sat alone on the park bench at lunch and felt the absence of the girl beside him. Brown. Just brown, only brown, always brown. Exactly the perfect distance below his just, only, always brown eyes was his nose, which had turned red at the tip from the morning cold. He supposed there wasn't much to a normal nose other than not being too long and not being too short and not being too runny, which his wasn't, so he supposed that his was normal enough. But then came the lips. They were what he was most ashamed of. Puffy on top, collapsed and almost deformed on the bottom, chapped and dry and uncomfortable to part, always pursed as if recoiling from a foul odor, always trying to hold in the words that he couldn't say, the words that gnawed at his stomach and clawed at his throat, but never quite reached the face, always biting at those terribly imperfect, bloated lips scarred by years of concealing that terribly painful truth, those terribly, horribly, imperfectly, painfully truthful words. The man halted to a stop, suddenly gasping for air, refusing to open his mouth and yet desperately needing to. He glanced back at the sidewalk behind him, realizing that he dropped his blue black top hat along the way. It was lying on its side just a few steps back, perfectly retrievable, and yet the man's feet were suddenly impossible to move, chained down to the concrete below. He tried desperately to stagger back, but those gleaming, polished shoes refused to budge. The man stooped over, finally willing his lips to open as the frigid morning air rushed through, bathing his world in ice and flame, and allowing the words he'd hidden for years to seep out, deaf to all ears but his. I'm sorry.
Okay, Liam, you've got to send that up to the website. I need to read that again. Um, oh my God, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know how you do it. I don't know if any of you guys do it. Okay, I'm going to start with something that I'm going to call attention to a piece of this that has nothing to do with the descriptions. Okay, to the repeating of words. Um, not. Everybody notice that? Not, 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 not. He's got not at the beginning. He's got nots in the middle. That's right. Sally to everyone. It was so poetic, gorgeous, creating a cadence inside the piece by repeating the not. How about do you want to just say one of those sentences again? Any of them where you are repeating? I think you also have a place to repeat just, but one of those ones, maybe the not gray. I don't know. Just read one of those sentences to us, please.
Okay. Um, Down below the perfect hair were the perfect eyes. Just the right shade of brown, not too dark to be intimidating, and yet not light enough to seem vulnerable or weak.
Right? Not this, and you can feel your body moving. Not this, and not that. And then he brings it in. So he's unified this thing with with the repeating word. I personally like repeating words. If you think of the opening of The Tale of Two Cities, of course, by Dickens. Some of you will know it. Some of you were in class when we've read it. It's the best of times. It's the worst of times. It's the this, it's the that. And you get this repetition, and your body also can be moving inside this piece. Okay. Um, and of course, here we've got this. There's so many of courses here. I've got a crazy person who's going to pour all this grease on his hair to make his hair perfect. Then he can't even put the top hat on it. Weirdly, they're bringing top hats to the offices that they don't wear. Um, and that Liam then moves methodically down the face, and the piece is conscious of this methodical moving. He starts here, then he gets here, 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 and the man is aware of his own, of what he looks like. So um, there was a bit here where Liam says that he has thoughts about himself and his lip, for example. I think it was the lips. But then what's here that really is remarkable is this whole layer that the lips are pursed. How do you do it, Liam? What do you want them to be? He's got these closed lips because he's holding something back. He's holding this secret, this thing in him that he has this urgency to say, but for years or years he hasn't said. So we're dealing here with a broken person, a really broken person, just totally amazing. And what was the last sentence? How does it end?
Um, the man stooped over, finally willing his lips to open as the frigid morning air rushed through, bathing his world in ice and flame and allowing the words he'd hidden for years to seep out, deaf to all ears but his. I'm sorry.
Wow. So, this becomes clearly if you think of this in terms of a bigger piece, this piece that he's just written is like a crucial scene where a whole history of this person, um, a year's worth of history, is resolved as he picks up this hat and he says these words that he was unable to say for all that time. I also wanted to say, there's so many things to say. When he opens his mouth, the cold air rushes in. So it's like thoroughly imagined. Um, so thank you, Liam. But please do put it out. I'd like to read that again.